Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are, or whatever time it is, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're in the land down under, or you're just sitting down to dinner in Cleveland. Want to welcome you to an impromptu discussion on A Voice for Men with our Director of Collegiate Activism, Mr. Sage Gerard. Sage, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hello.
That's Sage, by the way. For some reason, it didn't shift the cameras to you. We've got to make sure our technical shit is working. Say something, Sage.
Something. Hello? Hello?
Okay, yeah, there it went. Okay, all right, all systems are go. I didn't want to say, Houston, we have a problem. But goddamn if Georgia doesn't have one. Man, I got to tell you, we got some stuff to tell you tonight, and it's like I want you people to strap your ass in your fucking crazy chairs right now. And like if you've got a spare straitjacket, maybe some Thorazine, Thorazine IV drip would be good. Couple of panels of therapists to speak with as we move along in this show. That might be helpful. Stay away from the hallucinogens because this won't be pleasant if you do something like that. There is an upcoming conference at the Kennesaw State University, which is just north of Atlanta, Georgia, in beautiful downtown Kennesaw, Georgia, home to, at least I know, one beer distribution center. But it is a really nice place. Kennesaw is a nice suburb of Atlanta. It is a great school there, Kennesaw State. And for the first time ever, we are in the United States. We are going to have a full panel presentation, I guess it were, that has directly to do with men's rights. And we're saying the R word. Yes, we're coming out and saying it. Men's rights, not men's issues, not men's perceptions, but men's rights. For instance, I'll be speaking there. I'll be talking about the academic and political fraud that has been hoisted in our schools of late, going by the name of rape culture. Going to be talking about that at length, as a matter of fact. There is going to be other great speakers there, like the notorious Karen Strong, Girl Writes What, the very brave and brilliant Janice Fiamingo from the University of Ottawa, who has paid for her opinion by expressing it in public. And we also will have Jonathan Taylor. I say we, this is actually KSUM, the Kennesaw State University Men's Group, is putting this on. And Jonathan Taylor of A Voice for Male Students. I don't know where he came up with a name like that, but he named his organization A Voice for Male Students. And he's one brilliant dude, too. And he is a former educator that happens to know the subject of young men in education very, very well, and he knows what they're going through there. And speaking of going through crap, again, we'll go back to Sage in a moment. I just want to set the scene for everybody. I did this because I wanted people to have time. I instructed you to strap into the crazy chair, to put the straitjacket on, to get the therapist ready, to get the IV Thorazine drip started, and hopefully you'll have time for all that. But here we go. We're doing this talk, this series of talks for Kennesaw State University men, and we're going to be addressing topics that are not popular, but they are being addressed by people who have a lot of expertise in these areas and who have dealt with them for a long time. And it is going to be an academic discussion. It is going to be a reasoned discussion of some rather controversial topics for the modern university, but it is going to be a discussion that is free and open, and people are willing to absolutely allowed to ask questions. Well, that doesn't appear to be enough. For some of the students and faculty at Kennesaw State, they are now planning their protest. And to give you more about a rundown here of this bizarre, this epic saga that he's been through at that university, the things that have happened to him and what's happening now and leading up to what's happening now and what we're going to do about it in the future. So Sage, I want to give you the floor, and I'm going to strap into my Thorazine chair and listen to you.
Yeah, it's you're going to need to have some those straps need to be made out of some freaking chain mail or whatever. But this is going to be. See, here's the thing. Kennesaw State University has been giving me, well, not the entire university, it's been very mixed. The Interdisciplinary Studies Department, which is one department in Kennesaw State University, has pretty much been having it out for me. And what essentially has happened is that Kennesaw State University Med has been advertising itself as a non-feminist space, and this is meant to be understood as a space where you can look at gender in a non-ideological lens. Of course, that's not how people read it. So what ended up happening is that there are people who spreaded rumors about KSUM, including faculty, without any real thought about the situation. And the ruminations that have followed have led to unwarranted accusations levied against me through the legal division on KSU. And I covered that in a previous video with you, Paul, where the legal division sent me a letter with staff from the Interdisciplinary Studies Department cited as the complainants, stating that I was creating a hostile work environment for women. And that video is, of course, for everybody's review if they want to take a look at all that context. But it's been escalating in a very interesting way, and it really started to pick up speed after the Sentinel, the Kennesaw State University paper, did a really good piece on us with a staff writer named Sierra Hubbard. She posted a news piece that busted a lot of myths about KSUM, but some other people in the Sentinel didn't like that. Two other staff writers wrote opinion pieces, not news pieces, and the staff writers are Ashley Howell and Mike Foster. They wrote very whiny, petulant pieces that were just not fair to KSUM's position at all. They claimed that there was research. Well, Ashley Howell especially claimed that she researched the piece, but she never talked to KSUM. She never talked to the women of AVFM. She never talked to Women Against Feminism. She's only really had an understanding of Emma Watson-esque feminist image, and she's just been throwing a bunch of mud, as did Mike Foster. They only complain about the image of KSUM while still pretending that they care about gender equality.
While attacking the image of KSUM.
Right, while attacking the image of KSUM. And it started escalating further. Today, just today, one of the staff of the Student Life Department gave me, the light's probably glaring, but they gave me these flyers. They tore them down because they were causing a real issue for the Student Life Department. There's some policy about how far you can go. And these flyers quote you, Paul, out of context. The first flyer I had...
I get to be on a flyer.
Yeah. So these were posted all over campus. You were quoted... There are two quotes here. The first says, quote, "If you have a vagina, the blood of all those children who are abused far more at the hands of women than men has stained your skin and caked around the cuticles of your fingers," unquote. And, quote, "I find you as a feminist to be a loathsome, vile piece of human garbage. I find you so pernicious and repugnant that the idea of fucking your shit up gives me an erection," unquote. And, again, if they're quoted out of context, they could get people to believe whatever the hell they wanted, and they posted a Tumblr called mensrightsinfo.tumblr.com. And it's claiming to be a source that is started by anonymous KSU students and faculty, that's a key point, and faculty, that is supposed to present information that is concerning men's issues so that KSU students can decide for themselves, you know, because they're all about objectivity and letting people choose for themselves, what to think about the men's rights movement and about the upcoming conference. Now, through a little bit, they ended up posting a fundraiser today as well on GoFundMe.com. And it was a fundraiser for the protest. They wanted to put up some cardboard prop things all around the campus green, which is right outside the conference venue, and to basically share information with people who were passing by. And they wanted $500 for it. By the time I got to the page, they got to $325. And I love free speech, and I knew that this was going to be an interesting event, so I went ahead and covered the difference. I donated $175.
And that was personal money, right?
Yes. What I ended up doing was leaving a comment there, saying, "Look, I think this pretty much saying this is misguided. I feel free to prove that you are actually against free speech and against evidence-based evaluations of character." And they ended up, so they met the $500 goal with that. They raised 60 more since I last checked. And two of the donors were staff from the Interdisciplinary Studies Department, people who have previously either harassed me or have gone after a KSUM advisor. So they're supporting this, even though, again,
now,
people...
before you go on, let's clarify for somebody that, like, they just walked into this thing.
Sure.
Understand that student groups need advisors in the faculty.
Yeah.
That it's sort of an important thing, and that 2 of your faculty advisors, after some anonymous email campaign come into your school about ABFM being called a hate group by the SPLC, which it was not. I mean, again, that's just factually incorrect. It never happened. Long story behind that. Bottom line is, somebody that doesn't work for the SPLC wrote an article in which he said he thought one of many, or this long group of websites, had some misogyny on it. And the feminists have taken that and turned it into that we're on the hate map for the SPLC. Go look at the SPLC's hate map. We're not on there. We don't. It's all bullshit. But 2 of your advisors were run off.
2 of the advisors for KSUM have withdrawn their faculty sponsorships of KSU Men after one of the interdisciplinary studies department staff, Tom Penn, whichever it is, sent an email with the SPLC bullshit to Liza Davis, our first advisor. Then there was an anonymous individual that emailed Student Media, which is the anonymous individual you were referring to, and that's bled over to the Sentinel, which is how the Sentinel took interest in KSUM. The Sentinel's interest scared off our second advisor. So the SPLC allegation, it can be found in the chronology leading up to the withdrawal of 2 advisors. So this is bad for KSUM because advisors help make sure that KSUM is connected to campus services through faculty endorsement. We still have a KSUM advisor now, and he's been sticking with us fast, and he's been really awesome. He doesn't necessarily agree with everything that we do, but he respects our free speech rights, and he's been very, very good about making sure that we have a presence on campus despite the bullying that we've been facing. So
whoever you are, sir or ma'am, salutos.
So it's of course, I'm not going to share his name because I don't want him to be harassed at work. So, Robbie Lieberman, one of the donors to that fundraiser for the protest, has approached our last remaining advisor and gave him a hard time. So we ended up going through this huge thing with the dean and all that. And again, that's from another hangout I had with Paul. But to bring it back to where we are now, this is a continuation of the same conduct, a continuation of the same habitual attempt to harm KSUM and harm the reputation of myself and Paul and pretty much anybody who's interested in men's rights advocacy and is willing to be passionate enough to be outspoken about it and to dare to speak outside of an ideological framework. So this is pretty remarkable, and if you go, again, it's mensrightsinfo.tumblr.com, and you can look at all the dishonest quotes on there. And Paul, I understand you want to talk a little bit about the quotes?
Before we do, I want to get to the quotes and the use of them. Before we do, though, there's a couple of things I want to cover here that I think just needs to be said. And, I've been being playful about this since we started and joking around a little bit, but there is something with this that I don't want to joke about. This is, we're not talking about a re-education camp. We're not talking about something that Pol Pot dreamed up or that might be happening somewhere in Sweden with the type of governance they have there. We're talking about an American university that is allegedly, aspiring, as most universities allegedly aspire, to a kind of classic liberal education where the idea is to challenge orthodoxy, to challenge standards, to challenge the establishment, to look at everything again, and to exchange ideas, to put things on the table between people that are educated and are getting educated, and finding a way to, in the arena of free thought, to make this a little bit better world than it is before. That's what the purpose of universities are. And now we have some professors from the Interdisciplinary Studies Department and some of the wind-up adults that we now call modern-day students, and they are having a protest because we're going to talk about a specific population's issues. I feel like I want to have a moment of silence for higher education in the United States. This is an abomination that's happening. And I'm glad this stage gave them money. I think it was a really good thing because I believe in their free speech too. They should be able to go out there and protest anything. I mean, we're all free to be fools in this world.
Right. And
your biggest problem is that somebody's going to say something you don't agree with, and you think that's a social cause. Wow. All I can say is you got some pretty high-class problems. We'll be talking about suicide, young men being marginalized in education. We'll be talking about wholesale persecution, that what has happened under supposed rape culture with the demonization of men. We're going to be talking about some very real stuff, and your problem is that we're going to talk about some very real stuff. Shame on those professors. Shame on them. They're terrible examples, and they should be asking their students to attend and to challenge the speakers, to bring their best game to it, because we will stand there and answer your questions. We'll hold up to any interrogation that you want to give, and we'll do our best. And if you can bring better ideas, then people will listen to you. But this is, my God. Anyway, just had to get that out there. It's just an embarrassment.
Yeah.
What our schools are turning into.
Yes, and it should be stressed that first of all, the organization, it's a student organization that's hosting this fundraiser, and it's called Yes Body, and it's no spaces and capital YESB. But it's essentially an organization that proclaims to be about gender equality and blah, 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 blah. You know, it's the same song and dance. But one thing that I thought was really concerning is when I donated the $175, I got an email back after I sent an email saying you're invited to the conference and all that. They said that they were not trying to curtail my free speech. And on top of that, they posted a notice, an update on the fundraiser page, which we should leave a link to in the low bar once we get done here. On the fundraiser page, they basically say, we reached the goal despite snarky comments. Like they're only referring to me. I'm the only person that made like a challenging comment there. And on top of that, they posted an update on their Tumblr page stating that some of the people in the group were not happy about spending the money I donated for the protest. So they want to see if they could repurpose it. So I kind of have mixed feelings about this. They say they want to repurpose the money for victims of sexual assault. Here's my mixed feelings. One, this is fraudulent. For one thing, they said this is for the protest. Now they're saying they're not going to use the money for what they promised they'd use it for.
Fraud.
Then there's the other part. Well, the protest is unproductive. I mean, the protest won't accomplish anything, really. We're not going away. The conference is still happening. They're still welcome to come in and speak their minds, so what's the protest going to really add? And maybe a donation to an equitable organization would be productive in comparison. But at the same time, there's so many layers of dishonesty to this. They don't I think they're just trying to find whatever way they can to look good at somebody else's expense, namely mine. And
you know what it is, you ginger misogynist. They don't want your mansplain money.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Let me make something very clear, and I hope you don't mind if I give a little bit of a speech.
Go for it.
When I was working on KSUM, I started back in February of last year. KSUM didn't exist for several months, but I knew of it as an idea. I went to a group therapy session for men. They're called the Gentlemen's Club. They ended up wanting to ask the male members of the group, it was a men-only club, where they had to sign a form saying they would agree not to socialize with each other outside of the group, which goes beyond what you would normally expect from a group therapy session. And so I ended up thinking, well, at the same time, this is the best representation I can think of for men on this campus. I don't know if the Gentlemen's Club is still there, but Barry Faust, the professor running it, told me he was not interested in advocacy or actually solving issues, just talk therapy, basically. Just talking guys through their problems. So I said, you know what, this isn't going to be nice. Start a case on November 6th. And through this, I've actually estimated this. I've driven over 10,000 miles. I have gone out to print shops. I've gone out to advocate for feeding the homeless. I've got boxes piling up in here where I'm going to be giving food to the Feed the Future program at KSU. And this is all, again, this is my expense, stuff from my pantry, and other KSUM members are donating to this. We're advocating for a more equitable IPV center where men and women have representation. Right now, men are not in the outreach program, essentially. They're not marketed to. And they're aggregate services for women in the counseling capacity, but none for men. The assistant dean, Bob Maddox, told me so. And I've been pushing for an equitable self-defense course on campus, because there's one on campus called Resisting Aggression Defense for Men, that is very dangerous and has even a clause in its manual stating explicitly that men are responsible for going out and stopping sexual assault, putting themselves at risk in contradicting a self-defense course. I've been working my ass off with other people who also work their asses off for almost no thanks. No feminists were in sight at any of these things. These opportunities for gender equity, they're not there. Nowhere to be found. And when a feminist takes an issue, or somebody social justice warrior type, an anti-MHRA, let's say that, comes up to me and says, I have a problem with your image. I don't like the way you say this. My question, unfailingly, is, where were you? Where were you? I'm seeing a huge mess that you're not picking up, and now we're picking up the slack. And the way I see it, I get to bitch about the people who didn't clean up. Because now, all of a sudden, the additional responsibility lies on the people who actually give a shit, as opposed to the people who say they give a shit. And only when did I start criticizing the ideology of the dark age church of today, feminism. Only when I started criticizing it and started saying maybe we should look at this in a non-ideological lens, all of a sudden they start showing up. All of a sudden they're here. They appear.
Oh my God! What a coincidence!
Oh wow! Now all of a sudden we're not actually advocating for men. No. Not all that work was invalid. All we're wanting to do is just start a fight. All we're wanting to do is fuck you people. I mean, honestly, you can do all sorts of things to me, and I've been able to live with it. But there's one thing that's always gotten under my skin, and that is when KSU members are treated like they don't actually do anything when they do. They work hard, and some of them are coming out of their shells now. They're actually starting to speak up about their own opinions, and they don't include the feminist or social justice perspective. They look at things in a non-ideological way, and they say, wow, this campus is in pretty bad shape. Maybe we should do a little work. Work! That's the key word, work. Because it's really, really pathetic that only now feminists show up, and they're willing to say they'll donate money to help men too or whatever, not because they care. Not because they're compassionate about equality, but because they want to prove a point.
Because they want to use that long enough to shut you up and to shut us up, and they'll go right back to their gynocentric bullshit narrative, discounting every struggle that men face, and really, really making themselves the epitome of hypocrisy each and every day of their lives. That's all that's about. It's the all of a sudden found religion and start talking about it like they've been doing it this whole time. No, here's what we're really about. We've been watching ever since A Voice for Men launched, and ever since we started actually becoming an entity that they had to contend with, we've seen feminists across the United States and Canada and in other countries suddenly jump up with this new narrative that we're really the ones that are taking care of men's issues and we've cared all along. No, you haven't. You're a liar. You've made it your business to shut people like us up, and we're really trying to talk about these issues. We're just not going to talk about them under the narrative that you approve of, and because there's been so much of this bullshit that you're pulling, we're not going to probably talk about them for a while in the way that you want to. So what can I say? Last I checked, we still had a U.S. Constitution, and we had a Bill of Rights, and this is that free speech thing, which is, I know, rather inconvenient, but this is not Canada, so we're going to talk. Now, let's move on to these quotes from Paul Elam.
Sure.
And I find it interesting is that, internet makes a permanent... Go ahead.
No, do you want to pull them up, or should I?
We'll start with the flyers.
Okay.
I mean, those are a couple of good ones, and then you know what? I don't even need to go to the Tumblr page to pull stuff that they've quoted. I can pull all kinds of offensive shit I've said over the years, and I can probably even sit here and tell you some of the offensive shit I'm going to write next year. and the year after that, and the year after that, and that I'll keep writing until we get people putting these issues on the actual table, not in a, hey, I'm going to be nice so you'll shut up way, but in, hey, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and help work on these issues. You will notice that the rhetoric softens and the attitude changes drastically when you're actually a genuine person doing something about these problems, as opposed to somebody telling me, oh, shit, feminism has it covered. You know, oh, my God. I've got words for that, but they're offensive, too. So we'll just stick with the flyers. I do want to say, before we get started here with my quotes, which, you know, I like my quotes. They came from me, and that's a good thing. But before we get to those quotes, what I want to remind people watching is that the scene that you're seeing play out here, this little psychodrama played between the university and the internet and Tumblr and their whatever it takes $500 for them to gather on a piece of grass and say something. You know, I don't know where that happened. But what's happening here is, imagine the analogy. The guy is laying on the street, and he's broke, and he's poor, and he tried to find work. He got laid off, and next thing you know, he's on the street. He's homeless. He's hungry. People are walking past him, you know, with the blinders that people that have wear. We look the other way, and I guess I say we because this is a social problem. Everybody does it. We look the other way at the guy that has nothing because it's, you know, we might feel compelled to actually do something if we don't, and so we just look the other way, and the guy says, please, will you help me? And people ignore him, and please, will you help me? And people treat him like he does not fucking exist. For a long time, just like they've treated people in the men's movement until we started making noise. And then finally one day he wakes up and he knows, you know, he doesn't know what's going to happen, but he knows he's angry. And people start ignoring him again, and he finally throws his can down. He says, God damn it, I'm alive! I'm here! Pay attention to me! And a woman steps forward from the sidewalk and says, well, you know, I was going to help you till you got rude. That is what you're seeing here. That's all you're seeing. So we'll go over my quotes. We'll talk about the stuff that I've said and the stuff I'm going to say and the stuff I'm going to keep saying, not giving a fuck whether anybody likes it. And then we'll talk about why it's going on. And it's going on because that is the analogy that fits. It's perfect. You ignore people, you marginalize. I'm not saying that these are my problems. I mean, look behind me. I'm not exactly, and if I could stand up, you would see I wasn't starving. This isn't about me, but there are people, men, suffering in a society that has its back turned to them. They can't get a bed in a shelter when they experience violence at home. You look at all the people that are homeless. Almost all of them are men, and the worse the condition of the homeless, because, you know, there's homeless people that are listed as homeless, but they stay in shelters. Those are mostly women. The people on the streets sleeping under bridges and in ditches and in sewers are almost all men. This is what's going on, and there's a million other statistics that most people don't give a flying fuck about that demonstrate what these problems are, and they're not going to care about them until they're made to care about them. So anyway, I could go on that for a while, but I won't. So, okay, I said at one point, I forget, I find you so offensive as a feminist, so vile, pernicious, corrupted, whatever, that the idea of fucking your shit up gives me an erection. Well, let me say also, too, that I love Indian food. As a matter of fact, I'd kill for some saag paneer. I love those little cubes of paneer and the creamy spinach. I'd fucking slap my mother for the stuff. Oh, wait. I really wouldn't, would I? I really wouldn't kill somebody for a little bowl of spinach with some spices in it. Not so much. When people feel, they talk. That conversation was something that happened on a website by David Futrell. If I recall correctly, that statement was directed at David Futrell. It might have been in one of his kitty cat adoring commenters, I don't know. But it was a heated exchange where really hostile things were said on both sides, and that quote that Sage pulled off the flyer has come up. It's one of the ones in the grind feminist vaults of Paul Elam quotes that we pull out when we say, we don't want you to hear what he's going to say at this talk because it's not that. We want you to look at this and not pay attention to what he's going to say at this talk. Well, you know something, people are going to come pay attention anyway. But what that was a heated exchange. I might do it again, I might not, you never know, it depends on how I feel. But things that were equally bad were being said to me at the time, or equally inappropriate, or whatever sort of fake-ass moral judgment you want to put at it on the time. But guess what, folks?
And all of those things that were said to you are not going to appear on that Tumblr. Just so you know. Know what's not going to appear there.
What was it? What was the next quote?
Oh, quote, if you have a vagina, the blood of all those children who are abused far more at the hands of women than men has stained your skin and caked around the cuticles of your fingers, unquote.
Okay. Somebody would have to give me context on that. I really don't even... I mean, I sort of vaguely remember that quote. Does it give a reference where it came from?
It does on the Tumblr. The flyers themselves don't actually cite the original source.
I can't even remember.
I mean, we got people watching, right? I mean, I'm sure they can actually go to the site and pull out some of them and put
yeah, I mean, absolutely. Google the words or whatever, get some context on it. I guarantee you, it is whatever it was, and it may have been hostile. I don't know. It may have been hostile to an idea. There is, a matter of fact, and again, I don't know that this particular comment was related to that. But I think some really strong things need to be said about women's violence toward children in this culture. The violence, one of the most ignored forms of violence. We talk all the time about the interest of the children, and then we see them handed over in custody to women who abuse them regularly. It happens like clockwork. We see women, school teachers, that molest their students, and sometimes they go to jail, sometimes they don't go to jail, sometimes they are given community service, and we act as a culture like, you go boy, you got lucky. There is a lot of things that women do to children who they are. Primarily, if a child is harmed in the home, it's most likely going to be by his biological mother. That's a fact of life. Yet, when we talk about violence in the home, violence in families, we talk about what does a white ribbon campaign talk about, and everybody else in universities and everything else? We talk about violence against women. That's what people will shell out money for. That's what they give a damn about. When the preponderance of children that are harmed in the home are harmed by their mothers, and it's a taboo subject to even talk about, and the women of this culture do stand by and allow that taboo to continue, women that are supposed to care about the interest of children. And yes, they do as a group. Women have a group culpability in the social problem that we have. So do men. And what they probably will not quote for the benefit of potential feminist consumers to think that I'm a demon that should not be allowed to speak anywhere is they won't quote the critiques that I've made of men, which are often just as or even more brutal about men in this culture. What I do is brutal critique, and I do harsh juvenalian satire. I always have. There's a ton of quotes out there. It's like, according to the mainstream media, everywhere from the Washington Post to the Seattle Times to ABC News, everywhere I've been quoted, there's only like 9 things I've ever said in 6 years of activism, because they're the same fucking lame-ass 4-year-old piece of satire that they drag out of the dusty archives and say, you go, oh, look what Paul Elam said, don't let him talk at the university. You know, guess what? That shit ain't going to work for you, because I'm going to keep talking. I mean, there obviously are ways that people could stop me. They could shut down KSUM's conference. They could try to, I don't know, pull the fire alarm. That's a good one. Feminists love that. Pull the fire. When all else fails, pull the fire alarm. When you don't have an argument, pull the fire alarm. When you don't have a counter view, block the doors. scream at people, hold up pieces of paper saying, look at what this terrible man said. Don't listen to him. When you don't have a response to what is going to be said at that conference. And this is what it boils down to. This is a bunch of people that simply, and I think they're conscious of it in a lot of ways, feminism and a lot of aspects of traditional life and the man-up crowd and the white horse crowd and the crazy masculinity that says women are fragile little flowers even when they blow their husbands away in their sleep and need to be coddled and treated kindly. These kinds of mentalities, including feminism, have no, they're standing on very shaky ground, and they can be dissected and dismantled by your average 4-year-old while he is playing marbles. And to have actual thinking grown-up adults come to your university and point out these frauds that are going on in broad daylight, the disparities between men and women. I mean, guys are what, 40% or less of most college campuses. They're the minority in every sense of the word when it comes to degrees and advanced degrees. And what do you see on the campus but women this, women that, women this, women that, all the way through the campus? They can't even fucking name a defense course without bringing in the fact that it's about women. And that shit's crazy. That shit, that's not going to stand up to scrutiny with a rational mind. That's not going to stand up to honest examination. And guess what? And here's where the real killer is. It's not going to stand up to honest, rigorous scholarship. Because if you were doing that, you would not have this crap going on. These students that are the useful idiots of these professors there, they don't realize it. But those professors have a lot of skin in the game. They have their whole careers riding on the line, every bit of bullshit that they've ever taught, all the ideology that has been filling their classrooms like sewage for 40 fucking years is on the edge of getting outed. It's been running silent and running without opposition for 40 years, and now the opposition is finally standing up and starting to say, you know what? Last I checked, if I looked up the meaning of culture and the meaning of rape, there is no rape culture. And even RAIN, the largest sexual abuse, anti-sexual abuse advocacy group in the world, and the most noted, came out 3 months ago and said, oh, rape culture? No, rape is not a cultural factor. It is a criminal element that's rather small, and you have a small amount of rapists committing a lot of crimes, and we can't solve this problem by imagining every male you run into is a potential rapist, or he needs to be trained or re-educated, or maybe electrodes attached to his head and zapped a few times until his pee-pee doesn't work, because that's where these morons are going. And people are finally starting to stand up and talk about this stuff, and they don't like it, and they're scared of it. But, change is scary, but don't worry, Femmies, we will help you get better. And anything next, Sage?
Yes, I have one more statement. I've dealt with a lot of crap in life. Even in the short 23 years I've been on this planet, I don't have a whole lot of experience compared to a lot of people I can talk to, but I do have enough experience to know that something is wrong, and that I am very passionate about the advocacy I've chosen to support. And I've decided to be very vocal about it. I've decided to be, even angry sometimes. And one of the more insulting aspects to the people who have tried to silence me is that they try to push me aside, take credit, and then say, we want to support a world where men don't have to be stoic and can express their feelings. When you are pushed aside and you hear the person who just pushed you aside say that, there's no words can't describe how stunned you can be at that level of hypocrisy. Yes, body, the faculty members who have supported you have a pattern of misconduct, of spreading lies about myself and Kennesaw State University men. None of them have sought out the anti-feminist or non-feminist woman's perspective. None of them have contacted me personally to work anything out. I've contacted them, invited them to the conference, and invited them to bring grievances to me. No response, silence. But I hear them making more moves. And I even filed an open records request not too long ago and got their emails showing they've been having meetings about us, showing that they're trying to even get opinion. Former advisors that, or just Liza Davis, the first former advisor, trying to get her to say something that they can use. And you don't include any of this in your book. None of it. You say that you want to have people have an informed opinion, but you don't provide the information. You're not fair to a position, and you're certainly not fair to anybody who's actually expressing their feelings openly and honestly. And you know why? Because I think that scares you. It really does. It scares you. A man who expresses his feelings, and those are feelings that you like and that you know how to handle, oh, you're good with that. That's great. Then all of a sudden you can just keep rehashing the same just self-serving, sycophantic, solipsistic bullshit until you end up building whatever nice, big, fluffy cloud made of money you need to get people to like you more, because that's all it's about, making sure people like you. Meanwhile, guys like me and the members in KSUM, the men and women who are a part of the KSUM membership, they are the marginalized voice on campus. And your behavior is not indicative of free speech. It's not indicative of a liberal education. And frankly, I find no regret at all in saying the following to you. Go fuck yourself.
I like it. I think you brought up a point too, Sage, that's really, really important to look at. And I assume that at some point that some of these Einsteins will be looking at this video and trying to find, well, oh, look, he said this and that, and just doing their quote mining deal. I hope some of you young men that are out here screaming women hold up half the sky or some other nonsensical jargon that you think actually makes a point, that you consider what Sage just brought up. And I mean seriously. I don't mean this disrespectfully. What feminists are saying now, particularly on campus, is that, yes, that gender roles are bad for men too, and that we want to change the world to make it better for men, that we need to show men it's okay to express your feelings. It's okay not to fit the traditional masculine standard for what constitutes a man. And, you know, a lot of that is not nonsense. There's some really good stuff in there. However, consider taking this a little further than something so basic and simple as saying we want to make it okay for men to feel. Look, I get it's okay for me to feel. Nobody's going to instruct me on that. I feel plenty of things. I feel anguish, I feel sorrow, I feel joy, happiness, love, anger, just like any other human being. But here's the real deal. Feminists do want you to feel pretty much what you're instructed. Because if you don't believe me, you guys out there that are supporting these feminists or the women that may be challenging this in their own minds, if you're a guy that believes that feminism is on your side because it wants you to be able to express your feelings, do me a favor. Step up to your feminist friends and you can go to the facts page on A Voice for Men and you will find a ton of verified statistics about disparities that affect men. And if you find one, if you can feel, you will find one that makes you a little angry, because some of these things really aren't fair, like the fact that men are sentenced to 66% more time than women for the same crimes, and they're twice as likely to go to prison for the same crimes, or pick another one, the fact that men don't even have the right not to be genitally mutilated when they're born. And you go to your feminist friends and you express anger about that. Tell them that this pisses you off, and then take a look at how long your feminist friends are really out there to help you express your feelings. They'll help you express your feelings as long as you're outraged about what happens to women. They'll help you express your feelings as long as you display some sense of vulnerability. They may not sleep with you after that, but they will go ahead and pat you on the head and tell you you're a good boy. But if you express any anger about what has happened to you as a male, not as a gay male, not as a black male, not as a Latino male, but just as a man, you express anger about things that happen to men just because they're men, and see what your feminist friends think of you then. And if you have a shred of honesty in you, you know it's bullshit. You know that those women and the men that are still trying to get their approval will turn their backs on you in a heartbeat, and they'll be treating you just like they're treating Sage Gerard right now. It'll be no different, I promise you. I've seen it happen 100 times. So go out to your feminist friends and then find out what they mean by friendship. Find out what they mean by supporting men, because they sure as hell don't mean having a men's group on your campus. They don't support men or women coming up to speak. There's 2 women out of 5 speakers at this conference. They don't want those women to speak either. They don't want to hear the women talk unless it is compliant already, unless it fills the need for their echo chamber and for their intellectual circle jerk. If it's not that, they don't want to hear it. And if you're looking, you will see this in everything. Look, there's room to disagree with us. I want to invite you, feminist, non-feminist, young man, young woman, professor, to come to this conference, and during the Q&A, get up and ask questions. And you can get up and ask questions. You can ask me about my satire if you think that's what's important to the world of men and women. Or you can ask questions about the issues that you're going to hear raised there. Challenge what we're saying at the conference. I'll tell you right now, if you want to get up and challenge me on something I wrote 4.5 years ago that I vaguely remember on my website, I'll answer you the best I can. But I'm not going to if you're not going to put any more energy into a question than that, if you're not going to remain any more relevant to what we're talking about at that conference than that, then don't expect me to invest a lot in caring about giving you the greatest answer. Ask us the questions about the issues. They'll be answered for you, and you'll have an opportunity to say what you want to say. That might be a better way to handle this. Come prove we're wrong. Come show the world that you know better, that you've got the answer, that feminism really is on men's side, and that feminism really does want to address the issue, and that feminism is outraged that 90% of the people sleeping under the bridges are men. Please tell us how outraged you are that so many of the homeless are men. Tell us how outraged you are and how concerned you are that men kill themselves at 4 times the rate of women, and that rate explodes to 10 and 11 times the rate of women during the process of a divorce. Tell us how outraged you are, and tell us that if we just told boys to quit playing rough and talk like girls, that those suicides wouldn't happen. And tell us why you believe that. Tell us why you believe in a rape culture or a patriarchy or any of this stuff. But just show up and fucking talk. Don't ignore the guy that says, bring your grievance to me, I'll answer it. What kind of coward routine is that? To silence that guy, or to turn a cold shoulder to him and refuse to talk to him, but you'll run around and talk shit to everybody that's bobbing their heads like bobblehead dolls, as long as you have an audience that doesn't disagree with you. This is and this is what our institutions of higher education have come to. They've got fucking degrees in cowardice. It's amazing. And I think, whoa, maybe you can get a master's at Kennesaw State in chicken shit. I don't know. Well, but it's starting to look that way.
Well, one thing I can tell you, Paul, is that if I get to the point where after I graduate, and if I happen to get some extra money, I would happily go back and I would audit. Audit means you go to a course and it's not recorded on your grade book, and audit a gender studies course. Just sit there and just be there. Just question it, talk to them, and they're just going to have to live with me during the entire time I'm there, and they can't mark me down for disagreeing because I know they would. It's all about really just kind of opening that discussion with them, and I've made the attempt. I've made the attempt to talk to them. I've invited them. I've told them very vehemently that I disagree with them, but they've not made any attempt to actually have that discussion. They just said that they're interested in discussion to the public, talking like this to someone else, just to make sure, to validate for themselves that they look good in the end. That's all that it comes to. And guys like me, we don't care how we look anymore. We don't. It's to the point where how you look is not going to make any difference if you're living in a culture that doesn't give a shit about you anyway. How you look is something that you only really concern yourself with if you're on top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you're on top, you're complete, you're self-actualized, you got all your needs below you taken care of, so the only thing you have to worry about is your existential crisis. Whereas you have the men who have not quite reached there yet, and you're preventing their climb, while pretending that you want to help them climb. It's sickening, and it has to stop.
And it is going to stop. There is not... every corrupt institution eventually finds its end, and of course every good one does too. That's the nature of human existence. We go in cycles. We do better, we do worse, we do mediocre. But one thing that this culture is not doing anymore, like it was outside, at least outside the insulated world of academia, where people can imagine that if men were not here, it would be a better world, and would not trouble themselves with thinking of all the diseases they would die of, and the rot of the infrastructure and everything else that would happen. I know that's a nuisance. Hi, Hannah. But look, we're about time probably to close this up. I do want to remind everybody, remind people, especially in the Atlanta area, around Kennesaw, those of you that could make it there by driving. That's a pretty heavily populated area. Atlanta's a big city. There's other nearby cities, MRAs throughout, to come to Kennesaw State. Be there November 1st. There is going to be a protest now, which is always good. We love it when they make their signs saying, here's what Paul Elam said in 1993. I love that. That's effective. You guys stay on that, okay? You keep doing that, and because you are advertising for people who will eventually come to avoiceformen.com, and if they are not too far gone in your world of propaganda and basic lies, they will read A Voice for Men. They will read my work. They will read the work of many other people, some of them really incredible, like one of these things you won't see on a sign. Let me tell you what you won't see on a sign protesting Kennesaw State. Erin Pitsey, the woman that founded the Battered Women's Shelter Movement in 1971, is on the board of A Voice for Men. And another sign, Ann Cools, the first black female senator in North America, and the woman who started the Battered Women's Shelter Movement in Canada, was the first speaker at A Voice for Men's conference on men's issues in Detroit. And you won't see, you might see some nasty stuff about Warren Farrell, but you won't find it pointed out that he was on the board of directors for the National Organization for Women in New York. There is a lot of stuff that you won't see about A Voice for Men and about the people in it. What you will see is sound bites, pieces of provocative satire, and I admit it's provocative. You know, if you're too bad, fuck you, I don't care. It's satire. I'm allowed to write it by law. Get over it. Start dealing with the topic at hand, whatever. But you're not going to, you're just going to stand out there with your bait in your hand about something somebody wrote 4 years ago or 4 minutes ago. It doesn't matter, because what matters is the issues. And all you're doing is ducking and weaving on that, and you're ignoring the growing team of dedicated people that is starting to capture worldwide attention, people that are experts in industries like areas like domestic violence, sexual assault, psychology, law. That's what A Voice for Men has, and we are not being quiet about what we're doing. I would suggest that you check it out and actually learn about the website, learn about the perspectives, learn that we don't want men in gender roles or women in gender roles either. We don't want to deny your abortion rights. We have gay members, lesbian members. We've had trans gender people write for the site. We have had everything. We're an inclusive bunch with a different idea, and your professors who are scared for their bullshit professions are telling you that this is a bunch of hate mongers because they don't want to see change. Well, guess what? It's too late. Change is coming, whether they like it or not, and it's going to start. It's already started in a lot of ways, but it's going to give another round, proving it's starting come November the 1st at Kennesaw State University in Kennesaw, Georgia, where you will see Janice Fiamingo, professor from University of Ottawa, Karen Strawn, known as Girl Writes What, excellent orator, excellent writer. She knows gender issues inside and out and backwards and can deliver them in ways that will amaze you, even if you don't agree with her. She's worth coming to see that. Jonathan Taylor, I'll be there giving my 2 cents worth, and you don't even have to pay. You just got to suit up, show up. If these issues matter to you, prove it by showing up and listening and by bringing your ideas to the table with you. And that's all I got. Anything else, Sage, that you would like to say before we go?
Very quick, yes, important. Kennesaw State University services require, they need to know how many people are coming soon because the conference is right around the corner. And they want to know how many people have RSVP'd 2 weeks before the event starts. October 18th is the last day to RSVP. Go to ksum.eventbrite.com to RSVP. Technically, if you do not RSVP, we will not prohibit you from entering, but I'm going to look at those numbers and I'm going to use that as a basis to order food, make sure there are seats available, and if you do not RSVP and you do not get a ticket, I cannot promise there will be enough food or a seat for you. So you need to RSVP if you plan to come, and you need to do it in the next 11 days. Thank you very much.
Excellent. And again, one more time, please come. Also, before we close out for tonight, as usual, this is coming to you from A Voice for Men and from KSUM tonight, in that we're talking to Sage Gerard in his capacity as the founder of KSUM. Please, if you like what you see tonight, or if you hate what you see tonight, go down there and give us a subscribe. If you hate what you saw tonight, this is going to be real good stuff. If you feel like getting angry, you can always just come back to the channel, and pretty much anything you watch will do it. So it's good for that. Please, if you like this stuff, give us a like on the video too to help spread the word. Especially if your Twitter account is tied into your liking, that helps other people see this stuff. So if you would do that for us, please, we would really appreciate it. And I'm going to take 1 more minute. I really got to offer, again, some public thanks. We just got concluded our quarterly fundraiser at A Voice for Men. I asked for $25,000, and you gave us $26,000. And you did it 24 hours before we were scheduled to end. That money is really vital. We are building toward our next international conference on men's issues. We're going to have a great lineup of speakers. We have to bring them from all over the world. We're bringing ABFM staff from all over the world. We're talking about a lot of people coming to one location. This is a very expensive project, and the other stuff that we do. I mean, we've got a lot of things, as you know, going on at ABFM. Thank you for stepping up to the plate, for hitting that donate button, and showing people that you believe in what we're doing, and you know that if, you know, and for those of you who don't like the satire, don't like the snarkiness and the chippiness, if we had another way, we would do it that way. So if you don't like what we do, the best thing you can do is help us so we can stop doing it one way and start doing it another. That's something to think about. I want to say good night to everybody, and we will see you next time with something here equally terrible and dirty and hateful, and maybe next time we'll have signs, or I'll wear a fedora and we'll talk about barbecuing kittens. Good night.